Why would people fly from all over the country to go to a particular doctor? Such is the case for my next interviewee, Dr. Ann Shippy. Dr. Shippy is a medical doctor who practices something called functional medicine, which you'll learn about in a few moments. I've often wondered myself, if I was a medical doctor and my only tool was to write a prescription for a drug no matter what types of problems people were having, it would feel inherently limited. Well, Dr. Shippy, in practicing functional medicine, has expanded her toolbox to include supplementation and applications of it in ways that are helping people all over the country. So you're going to learn a lot here. She has an amazing story, and I think it's going to inspire you and help you to a healthier future. Ann, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please tell me about who you are and what it is that you do.
I am Ann Shippy, and I am a functional medicine physician, but I came this path a little bit a circuitous route. I was a chemical engineer and I worked for IBM for 10 years and was really loving my career, and all of a sudden I got sick. I was on the fast track and making a really big contribution, and I couldn't get the answers that I needed from the medical community. And so I had to start figuring it out myself after going to about 8 or 9 different doctors. I was like, okay, it was before the internet. So I started reading everything that I could find and then seeing some other types of practitioners. So I saw a nutritionist, an acupuncturist, a naturopath, an allergist who is doing some unusual things, and really changing my diet and taking some supplements, and finally figured out how to get myself well. And then one morning woke up and decided to go to medical school. And I've really found that functional medicine is a great way to do what I was trying to do for myself all those years ago, where I could really delve into their biochemistry and physiology and look for the most holistic way possible to help them get better. And a lot of times it does involve supplementation based on lab testing. So I do a lot of laboratory testing on my patients because they're really coming to me to do the detective work. Not just do the band-aiding of the symptoms, but really finding the root cause and then helping them to get better. So with my MD and with my functional medicine certification, I can combine the best of both worlds.
Most of the doctors that I've met in functional medicine typically were practicing in more of a conventional way. And then something happened. They got sick, a family member got sick, they exhausted all the traditional medical options, and then went into these alternative approaches to get well, and then the lights go on, they get excited, now they have a whole new kind of practice. For many of them, sadly, they also start to make less money. But now you came at it kind of the opposite way.
So I knew I wanted to practice medicine differently. I knew that there had to be a different approach. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted the credibility and the foundation and the good things that an MD degree would bring, because there really is a time and a place for having the more acute care things that we do in allopathic medicine. But then once I finished medical school, I had a child in med school and a child in residency. So I had 2 young children when I was finished, and I was kind of tired doing med school in my 30s. So I went into just a regular traditional medical practice. I did that for about 3 years, 2.5 years, and I got sick again. I developed a couple of autoimmune disorders. And after going to the rheumatologist and knowing a lot about rheumatology myself, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not taking those medications. I need to, my kids are at the point where I feel like I can go back and do some additional training. And that's when I found functional medicine. They were the only people that I knew that were doing any training that really gets us back to the biochemistry and physiology and looks at the person as a whole. What's going on in your gut that can affect your brain, your skin, the whole rest of your body. So we look at the system as a whole.
Let's talk about autoimmune. This is one area where the illness is very chronic, and in conventional medical systems, people are even damaged over time by treatment. How do you normally deal with someone who comes in like that?
I love working on autoimmune disorders because I've seen such an amazing reversal with what I do. And in myself, in my own body, I got to experience that, where I had an autoimmune disorder that made me at an increased risk for having a stroke called antiphospholipid antibody. And then I also had the autoimmune disorder where your eyes and your mouth get very dry and extremely uncomfortable. So the problem with the way that we do things in allopathic medicine and just prescribe a medication is that the underlying process of what is causing the immune system to react abnormally and actually attack itself, that underlying cause is not addressed. And so what happens a lot of times is you go from one autoimmune disorder to the next, or other bad things really start happening if you don't get to the root cause. And that's really the problem with just suppressing the symptoms and suppressing the immune system with the medications that are used.
I know one of the areas that you're known for is mold. Can you talk a little bit about mold and what people can do about it?
So I think mold is an epidemic in our country and probably many places around the world because of how we're building buildings and because there's mold contamination in our food. The thing that I see the biggest impact from in my practice is from the building exposures. So a lot of times people think about mold as just the mold spores and that it's an allergen or it can cause asthma. But the biggest problem with mold is that it makes toxins. They're called mycotoxins or MBOCs, that the most toxic ones can cause things like cancer. They can be toxic for the liver, for the neurological system, poison the mitochondria, poison the cell membranes. So they can really affect any part of the body and cause a lot of symptoms and a lot of disorders. So there's a lot of research now that's coming out that's really linking the mycotoxins with almost every disorder that you find, including autoimmunity.
So when you have someone show up and you suspect mold, how do you help them?
So it can be very complex or it can be very simple. So sometimes it's just a matter of moving where they're living. But more often than not, the person has really built up a high amount of environmental toxins, including mold, in their body because they don't detoxify optimally or they've had a pretty big exposure. So then we have to use things like supplements to help get their detoxification pathways working more optimally. So the exciting thing is that people can be extremely ill. So one of my last health journeys was to get very sick from mold, which gave me the great opportunity to learn more about mold and how to help my patients better and to write books and speak on it so that people can be informed and not just be suffering from this hidden illness. So we do things like use liposomal glutathione and some of the natural binders like modified citrus pectin, clay, and charcoal to help to get the toxins out of their body. We can use some things like hyperbarics and infrared sauna, some clay and salt baths to really amplify the effects of the detoxification. And then a lot of times the people that are the sickest don't have methylation pathways that work very well. So there is a lot of supplementation that can actually help them methylate better, which means that they can do repair better and they can also clear the toxins from their body better, including heavy metals. I like to do pretty extensive testing when my patients can afford it because a lot of times it's not covered by insurance. So I like to look at the genes that they have that would predispose them to not methylating very well. And then we can now do some specialty labs where we can look at multiple places in the pathway of methylation and then see if it looks like it's working smoothly. So we can really optimize methylation so that they can, repair their DNA better and clear the toxins better and get just the right supplement program for them. Sometimes it takes a number of iterations to get it just fine-tuned for the particular person. And sometimes it's really simple. It's just a matter of adding some methylated folic acid and some B vitamins. But then other times it's more complicated and we have to have zinc and special forms of B12 and choline and betaine, TMG, to really get things moving smoothly.
I'd like to get your perspective on this. When someone is already supplementing for their health, when is the right time for them to seek out a good functional medicine doctor to guide them along this path?
I think ideally everyone would seek out a functional medicine physician that really, really wants to be proactive about their health because it's really easy to run the test to see things like, do I have enough magnesium? Is my methylation working properly? Am I detoxifying well? Does it look like my mitochondria working effectively. So that's the ideal, but there's a limit on the number of functional medicine doctors, and a lot of people that's not reasonable, because a lot of functional medicine doctors can't spend the time with their patients and take insurance. So then there are certain principles, there are certain things that I see that really everybody needs. And one of them is magnesium. I get to check magnesium on almost all my patients inside the red blood cells, and it's astronomical. Like almost everybody is low in magnesium, and rarely are people in an optimum range. And magnesium is so critical for helping at least 300 enzymes in the body to work properly. So important for certain types of methylation that I talked about previously. And so there are certain things like magnesium, and then also supporting our detoxification pathways. What I'm seeing in my office is that almost everybody is their barrels are filling up, because with the number of environmental pollutants that we're exposed to a little bit every day, and that building up in the body, so many people are getting to the point where their barrel is full and their health is starting to suffer as a consequence. So I think that everybody needs to be taking supplements that help to support their detoxification pathways. So things like liposomal glutathione, at least in small amounts, to augment the amount of glutathione that they already make in their body, and then some type of binder, so the clay, charcoal, modified citrus pectin, to keep the barrel from filling up and really help to prevent from getting so many illnesses that are related to environmental toxins. Even diabetes now has data that shows your weight is less of a risk than how many the built-up of environmental toxins you have in your body. And then the autoimmune diseases that we're seeing an epidemic around. And then cancer. So many things are related to where that barrel is filled up to with the toxins.
So with magnesium, does it matter what kind you take?
So I consider myself a connoisseur of several different supplements, and magnesium is one of them. My go-to form of magnesium is magnesium glycinate, because especially when people take it at night, it can help with relaxing and feeling more ready to go to sleep and staying asleep. But then I love the glycine part of it, because it also supports the detoxification pathways. But then I also have a couple of other forms. The other one that I like to use a lot is called magnesium theanine. And theanine is a very good supplement to really help support the brain.
Two areas that are attracting a lot of attention right now are brain health, brain function, and mitochondrial function. What do you recommend about those?
The brain function supplements and the mitochondrial supplements are so integrated. So the brain supplements that I really like include some of the mitochondrial supplements, but one of my favorite supplements for the brain is called phosphatidylcholine. So phosphatidylcholine is one of the forms of choline that really help to build healthy cell membranes. And we need healthy cell membranes to really have a healthy brain, because the brain is just chock full of good fats in those cell membranes. And our cell membranes have to be healthy to signal the cells exactly what to be doing correctly, and to have healthy receptors that are receiving those signals. Then with the mitochondrial support, I really love a supplement called MitoQ. It's a special form of CoQ10 that gets right into the mitochondria where they need to go, because it has a little charge on it. And then it really helps the mitochondria to make good energy. And that helps the entire body, especially the brain. And then when I put those three supplements together, the phosphatidylcholine, the MitoQ, and another one called nicotinamide D-riboside, I see tremendous impacts when people are feeling like they're having some cognitive decline. And then also with people who have had concussion syndromes, when I put those three supplements with something like hyperbaric, they can really get some dramatic improvement.
We actually interviewed the PhD who formulated the MitoQ supplement, and we were really impressed with him. Tell me what you like about it.
Well, one of the things that I love about MitoQ is that they do the research. So a lot of these companies that are providing supplements don't have the budget to be able to provide research. But MitoQ has really invested in doing research to show that their form of CoQ10 is very different than the other forms of CoQ10. in that you can use a very small amount of milligrams and see a tremendous difference in things like cognitive function and cardiovascular function. So it's really exciting that they're taking the research so seriously. And then I can take that research and see a difference in my patients. I can see the difference in how patients are their cognitive function and their cardiovascular function.
This is why I like to talk to people who are still working with patients. They're clinicians actually with the people in the field, seeing what is happening. Many times what the experiences of the clinician is not really matched to what the research might tell one. Like, for example, with SSRIs, clinicians were seeing suicides and the pharmaceutical company was saying, no, we did the research and it shows that there's no adverse effect as far as suicide was concerned. But then the clinicians had such robust feedback, it finally got the story out and people realized that these SSRIs were dangerous. So tell me if you see anything that's akin to that relative to supplementation, meaning what supplements are being given out there, and is there anything going on that you're experiencing maybe that doesn't match the research that people should know about?
So I really like my patients to run by me what they're taking, because a lot of times they will see something, see an advertisement and get all excited about it. And then it's not quite aligned with the other things that we have them doing. So I love it when they actually are doing research and bring me ideas about things, but I don't like them to start it until after they run it by me, because a lot of times there's actually a better solution than what they're seeing, or we're actually, if it's something like a resveratrol or Resveratrol type product, I want to make sure that they're getting the best quality. And then the other thing that drives me crazy is if they go and buy sub-quality supplements. So I love Costco and Sam's for certain things, but I think people really need to be careful about where they buy their supplements and the quality. So if people are trying to save money on the supplements, I think a lot of times they are probably getting substandard supplements that may not even have in it what they think they're supposed to have in it, or there might be environmental toxins. So especially things like turmeric, the research on that shows that it's heavily contaminated. So you really want to get most of your supplements from a company that's doing very meticulous incoming material checks to make sure they're not putting contaminants into the supplements that already came with the incoming materials.
Are there any brands that you like and trust that you can suggest to people? We don't have an interest in any of them, but we do have an interest in shining a light on them.
There are some companies that I think do a very good job, go above and beyond with their incoming quality controls. So I really like the ones that I'm such a connoisseur. I really do the due diligence to make sure that they have really good quality. So some of the companies that I recommend for patients are Thorne, Zymogen, Designs for Health, Premier Research. Research Nutritionals. They do an amazing job of really researching their products, and they also, do some of the clinical studies to show that they work. And then Quicksilver does a really good job, and they're very careful about the liposomal carriers. So there are certain things that I really like to recommend in a liposomal form, because that means they don't have to go through the digestive system quite the same way. They can just get absorbed and go right into the bloodstream very quickly. There's a particular product called Neo 40. It's a lozenge that helps to increase nitric oxide. I love that for some of my athletes, that they really benefit from having a high nitric oxide level. And then it also really helps with when people go to high altitude, like for here in Texas, being close to sea level and then going to altitude, a lot of people experience altitude sickness. It can be super beneficial from that. So one of the areas that I'm a connoisseur of is liposomal glutathione. So I work with about 6 or 7 different forms of liposomal glutathione, because most of the forms don't taste very good or smell very good, and depending on what the underlying ingredient is. So there's really some great forms of the liposomal glutathione: Research Nutritionals, Quicksilver, Essential Pro.
So if you can leave some of the most important things that people could do to better their life and health, what would the top 3 to 5 be?
I think everybody needs to be taking a form of magnesium. I think most people would benefit from a B complex. I think most people would benefit from doing some things that would help with detoxification, the liposomal glutathione, things like NAC, milk thistle that really help to get things out of the body, and then add in a binder like pectosol or clay or charcoal. I think most people would benefit from doing some form of mitochondrial support because most of us, our mitochondria, are really getting affected by environmental toxins, including mold. So CoQ10 and nicotinamide D-riboside, along with the B vitamins that I mentioned earlier. And I think people can do, even if you're feeling great, you can do a lot of prevention by taking those basic things every day.
A minute ago, you talked about combining CoQ10 with NAD, and it has a really enhanced effect. Is there any other stacks like that that you find work real well?
Yes, especially with detoxification. So with the more aspects of the physiology that you support, the better things can work. So detoxification is very complex. And when you are able to address each part of detoxification, which really is running on nutrients, and so many people are deficient. So when you support the liver, when you support the kidney, and when you support the gut, and then at a cellular level, even adding in the mitochondrial support, it all works much smoother and is more effective. A lot of these supplements are very synergistic together. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that is more powerful than a whole lot of one thing. So I really look for ways to get more effect out of each thing that the person is taking.
So do you have an example of something like this?
So with detoxification, when we support the phase 1 part of detoxification, there's a supplement called Metalloclair, which really starts to get things moving at a cellular level. And then with phase 2 part of detoxification, the things like the liposomal glutathione and the glycine to grab it and get it ready to go the rest of the way. And then with the exiting the body, you want to be supporting the gallbladder and the liver with some of the gallbladder supplements, and then the kidney and the gut to really keep things moving. Because one of the really important things for detoxification is to have the bowels moving on a very regular basis. More than once a day is really optimal. So it's using whatever supplementation and dietary changes it takes to do that. One of the other things that I didn't talk about is how important having the diet with the best diet with the supplements. I think a lot of times people think, oh, I'm just going to take these supplements and I'm not going to worry so much about my diet. But that's actually a really great place for synergy, because if you're eating a low inflammation, high nutrient diet, that's an even better foundation for the supplements to work even better. So I consider the high inflammation foods, the gluten, dairy, grains, the moldy foods like peanuts, you want to get those out, and then add in lots of vegetables, especially the cruciferous vegetables, the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and kale. But we're not getting the food that's as nutrient dense as we had 20 years ago, 50 years ago, because the soil's getting so depleted. So we need a lot of those trace minerals added in to the supplements as well. So even a good multivitamin or taking a mineral concentrate can be super helpful for adding in. You know, I consider supplements a really important tool in my practice. I get patients that are extremely ill a lot of times, you know, with very severe disorders. And if I didn't have supplements to really help dial in where their biochemistry and physiology is disrupted, I wouldn't be able to help my patients the way that they need to be helped. So when I see things like the legislation or the FDA trying to crank down on what we can recommend and prescribe and access to supplements, it's really concerning. I think it's a right for people to be able to access supplements so that they can help their biochemistry and physiology work better and that they can heal. It's so critical to not have tighter controls on what we can recommend, but we should have more trust and confidence that the supplements that we're buying are high quality.
If people are looking for a good functional medicine doctor, how can they find one?
There's a website called functionalmedicine.org that you can look up by your zip code and a 100-mile radius, and you'll come up with a list of doctors. Look for the ones that are certified first. Call the office, talk to the staff. When you talk to the staff, you get a pretty good idea of what how things are going to run, ask a few questions to screen them a little bit, and then pick the one that you like the best.
That's terrific, Ann. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I love it when I experience healthcare providers that see a new and better vision for the people they serve. They've got the guts to be able to go off of the conventional path to higher ground to help people in more profound ways. And that's what I took away from this interview. I hope it inspired you.